Hunter Biden pleads not guilty to all charges at a Delaware courthouse. Hunter's plea deal on 2 tax charges and a felony gun charge fell apart, at least temporarily, after U.S. District Judge Mariela Noriega expressed concern about the language in the diversion agreement, which had details about not prosecuting Hunter for tax crimes in the future. Joining me is our panel of experts, and we'll start with John. John, this was a plea deal. These plea deals very rarely get kibosh at the last minute. What was going on in Delaware?
Yeah, it seems pretty perfunctory and commonplace that attorneys on both sides of the issue get to an agreement. The defendant certainly knows what's going on before they walk into the court, but the judge was able to see down the road and say, wait, you cannot sign off on not prosecuting this gentleman further on other ongoing investigations. And this case has been handled unusually from the start. Hasn't been a clean investigation. They've dragged their feet. The Department of Justice has. There's certainly been obstruction and blocking that has ostensibly come all the way from the top from Attorney General Merrick Garland. So you have a judge looking at the terms of the agreement in front of her and saying, well, something is either unconstitutional or it's hiding something that needs to come to light. And certainly having these attorneys have the second chance that they got when they went back behind chambers to talk it through, and even when they came out not reaching an agreement, led to what we saw, this plea deal breaking down. It does allow and continue the opportunity for them to come back into court with another agreement, and so this is definitely ongoing. We'll see it in 30 days from now or so, but it's interesting that with all the wheels of justice turning in one direction, that when they finally come in front of the court and offer them something, the judge is like, yeah, this does not smell right, and that's been the case on this.
Wheels of justice. Luke, you are a veteran of the Hill, Capitol Hill. Does this have anything to do, could it possibly have something to do with this amicus brief that Jason Smith, the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, sent over to the judge, which contained a lot of this testimony, the information from the whistleblowers about some of these charges, some of this investigation, which was basically blocked by the Department of Justice? Could that have anything to do with this, do you suppose?
Maybe just a little bit. And to get to that, the American people cannot look at this in an unbiased manner and think that there is not a two-tiered system of justice. 5 times the judge asked the attorneys, is there any sort of precedent for the deal that you are trying to give Hunter Biden right now? Is there any other circumstance in which you can point to where this would fly? And the attorney had to say, no, there is no other circumstance. This is based off of the circumstances and condition of the case at this time. And the American people are looking at this and saying, you know what, if this were Donald Trump Jr., if this were a Republican, if this were just any American, we would be at the sentencing phase right now, but instead he's getting a sweetheart deal. And to your point about the brief, yesterday there was a circumstance, or 2 days ago, where they tried to strike the brief from the record by somebody from Hunter Biden's legal team calling into the court and purporting to be someone from Hunter Biden's legal team.
It was just a misunderstanding, though, I understand.
Well, I doubt that highly. I think it's classified as a misunderstanding whenever it's a Democrat that's trying to do it, and whenever there is a judicial system where it's weaponized by the left and they're using full utilization of that weaponized judicial system. And so I think that the judge was a little bit spooked after seeing that and seeing how the left wants to use the judicial system in order to give Hunter Biden a pass. Why not just hold everyone to the same standard?
Pastor Brad Wells, what do you think has been going on here?
Well, I'd like to pivot away from the political arena just for a second, but this topic is so crucial to all the stability of society. Ecclesiastes chapter 8 and verse number 11 says, because the sentence of an evil work is not carried out speedily, therefore the heart of man is fully set to do evil. In other words, there's lots and lots of people throughout society that are watching this. And, in any given sector of society, when we were kids, there's always a clown that's sort of pushing the agenda, pushing the boundary just a little bit. And if they get away with it, everybody else follows. If they don't, everybody straightens up and gets back in line. So it's very important for morality, for all of society, to see justice done.
Speaking of clowns pushing the agenda, Devon Archer, a close friend of Hunter Biden, is scheduled to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Archer was subpoenaed on June 12th, but he has postponed testifying 3 times. What is the hurry, for goodness sake, Luke Ball? My goodness. I mean, 3 or 4 times. You're subpoenaed on June 12th. You've got stuff coming up. a dental appointment, a doctor's appointment here and there.
Well, yeah, who among us doesn't have dental appointments conflicting with testifying in front of Congress? I mean, it happens to the best of us occasionally.
Of course.
Every step of this process has been pushed back and delayed. Not only has this testimony been delayed multiple times, but you have had, and it's the reason we're having this larger conversation right now, multiple times in which whistleblowers were told, do not go forward with this investigation. People who are in positions of power to prosecute being told, do not move forward with prosecuting Hunter Biden. Repeatedly, time and time again, there are exceptions made. There are positions pushed back. There are exceptions given because the fact is the Biden family has taken full utilization of this two-tiered system of justice. Perhaps the case is that Hunter Biden had to attend an art class. This is one of Hunter Biden's pieces of art.
You had to do this.
I had to take this from my living room above my mantle. I put it in front of the television. But look, the fact is that this person is getting away with the crime of passing this off as art, in addition to
now,
passing.
Now, is that a Hunter Biden original or Luke Paul original?
This says great value Dollar Tree discount on the back of it. So I don't think that it holds too much value. And honestly, I don't think that the case that the Bidens are trying to make to the American people hold a lot of value. It's about as worthless as this piece of Hunter Biden art, quite frankly.
You got to think of what that would sell with a Biden name attached to it, right? Hunter Biden really...
It's all in the eyes of the beholder, Jonathan, isn't it?
So he has no art skill, obviously. He also has nothing credible that he could give to the Burisma Foundation other than his last name and other than the protection that ostensibly they would get from his father, who could go after a prosecutor, who could interrupt the scales of justice, as it were, in Ukraine, put his finger on the scale, and ultimately allow Burisma to gain an advantage both in Ukraine and in the United States. They were about to spend $30 million on a U.S.-based company in order to further encroach even in our economy here, and they were doing so at the behest of the sitting vice president at the time. And it's corruption that obviously is laughable. It's even worse when you're seeing that these crimes were brought to knowledge as early as 2020. October 2020 is probably the first time these investigators are working at it. And here we are 3 years later with no resolution and a continuing action if they can get away with this.
So, Pastor Brad, I hate to bring this up, but we've got money, we've got cash, we have pictures of sexual encounters on the laptop, we have drugs. What else do we need? This is almost biblical in its proportions, isn't it?
You know, even as we were kids, we were all caught doing something wrong. The hand in the cookie jar. And there's lots of cookie jars out there. And it is absolutely vital, important, that the authority restricts and gives appropriate punishment to any that would dare to steal or trespass or go beyond where they're supposed to go. So this really happens in the home. The home is where the character is learned, and the correct response must be carried out.
The home, that goes to the top, though. That goes to the parents, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about Joe Biden here, right?
We are indeed. It happens at the home.
Yeah, oftentimes you hear, even from the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre is saying, well, they just want to watch their child rebuild, Jill and Joe Biden.
How did their story change? How has their story changed now?
Build Back Better is about Hunter Biden. It's not about the American economy. It's not about the American people.
From no involvement at all to, well, maybe we knew this was going on, but we want to see him get better.
But he wasn't involved in the business. Maybe he knew about the business, but he wasn't a business partner. Is that what it was?
That's what they want us to believe. I don't think there's an American out there, or a person that's been paying attention at least to this last week, that even will buy that as being close to the truth at this point.
Are we going to find a smoking gun in this Devon Archer testimony, Luke Paul?
It's possible, and I hope that we have some corroboration from the things that we've already learned. I think the most important piece, or one of the most important pieces of evidence, is the fact that Hunter Biden is sitting there sending these text messages saying, I am sitting right beside my father, and I want to know why the payment's not been made, and if I do not get an answer from you directly, I don't want to hear from anyone else, I want to hear from you directly why the payment's not been made, then I will be telling my father. That is taking the leverage and using it repeatedly over and over and over again. So either Hunter Biden is lying, or he is using full utilization of his last name in order to get something, which goes back to the home, as you were just talking about, where it's like the father, there was no way he didn't know about this, which is why we're entertaining
Pastor
impeachment.
Brad, last 30 seconds.
It's not just a smoking gun. This is a smoking cannon, a smoking arsenal. The whole house is burning down, and we're all, the neighbors, watching it. And we have to say, there's a fire there. It's obvious. You have to say what you see.
Well, we get more ethereal in a moment. When we return, UFO mania takes over Washington and Capitol Hill. Are we not alone? Find out in just a few minutes. A House oversight panel held a bombshell hearing on UFOs, otherwise now known as unidentified anomalous phenomena, that according to the Air Force, and what the federal government has covered up from public knowledge. David Grush, who served for 14 years as an intelligence officer in the Air Force and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, testified before the Oversight Committee's National Security Subcommittee alongside two former fighter pilots who claimed to have firsthand experience with UAP phenomenon.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
So, Brad, that is Dr. Grush there saying these are non-human, I guess, UFO flyers, pilots?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Well, I'll tell you what, from the Bible, as a Bible believer, as a Christian with a biblical worldview, I believe in creation, and the Bible describes creation here on earth. So is it extraterrestrial or alien? The other element is just undisclosed technology from some foreign government. The third option is something that would be spiritual, maybe even demonic or something like that, manifesting itself in some way. So those are the three options, and I really believe that this is undisclosed tech from another government, our own government, or something like that. As far as this biological material of the pilots, oh my goodness, wow, that just really opens the door there. I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
So tech, we should look to Elon Musk. Is that, Jonathan, who we should look to for answers on this?
I'm with Brad there. Biblical worldview doesn't have much room for alien activity. There are several ways you can explain this away. I think over 80% of what is considered UFOs, usually airplanes or drones or even birds, have been identified as UFOs. So I don't think there's much there. What we do need to ask is, following the money. So one of the things that did come out of the hearing is the misappropriations of funds. So funds that were allocated ostensibly in the last NDAA that was supposed to be going to a certain thing that went towards this investigation of UFOs. And I think when you follow the money, you get more answers. This is incidentally a DOD that is still funding abortion, so still funding
it always comes back to Tommy Tuberville, doesn't it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I do want to make that point, because if we're really looking for life that's obviously in the womb, now using DOD money through TRICARE to end that life, I think that's one place to start. But certainly follow the money. Will we end up at UFOs? I think blockbuster and Hollywood films are better suited to answer that. Maybe this doesn't have a place with the American tax money or really in a governmental hearing. But
Luke, Mr. Grush there, who is testifying, says he knows multiple people who were injured by non-human technology. Non-human technology. Now, what in the world does that mean to you?
From a former communications director standpoint, whenever I had a reporter that would call me and say, I have multiple sources that say this, this, and this, I would say, okay, well then tell me who one of them is, or point directly to one on-the-record statement that I can verify or corroborate. Because in order to have the discussion we're having, we must accept the premise that this whistleblower is telling the truth, that they have all of the full facts and direct knowledge of the situation, and the fact of the matter is, we simply don't.
Well, this is another point, because Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz made it clear that despite their top-secret clearance, they have been denied access repeatedly to knowledge of UFOs. And this is one of the things, I actually talked to Tim Burchett, and he said the thing that ticks him off is that they won't tell us.
Exactly, and that was the point that I'm driving to as well, because we have to accept the premise if we want to have this discussion and go along with the things that he is saying, because the Pentagon and others will not come out and directly contradict them. Look, this is blown up. This isn't just on some far-flung website on the internet. These are congressional hearings, and I think that it goes to the point that if the Pentagon is not being upfront with the American people, then folks start going down rabbit trails like UFOs. And I think it's also a far leap to go from unidentified flying objects, which could be anything and other technology, to alien or extraterrestrial life. I think folks so want to believe in extraterrestrial life that they will leap to that conclusion. And also, a final point, amazes me at how people are so willing to jump to extraterrestrial life to explain things away, as opposed to, as Jonathan and Brad said, a spiritual conclusion or leaping to anything that might be involved in spiritual warfare. Some people will go out there and say, yes, aliens exist, but there is no spiritual battle going on.
Talking about alien extraterrestrial life, we also had a hearing right next door to the UFO hearing about terrestrial alien immigration involving Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He testified before Congress Wednesday morning saying that the Biden administration's southern border policy is in fact working. Mayorkas was defiant, arguing that the border is completely under control, even as Democratic Congress members pushed him.
So would you say, having been asked this over and over again, that the United States, the President of the United States, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and all of the hardworking men and women at the border have operational control or have a form of presence, that they are aware of what's going on in the border and that they're working to secure the border every single day?
As we define that term, Congresswoman, we do.
Jonathan,
It's embarrassing.
do we have operational control of the southern border? And by the way, what is this app, the CBP-1 app?
Yes,
What's
the
going on?
CBP-1
What is up
app.
with the app?
So last year at this time, they rolled out this app that can track your migrants. So you scroll in and say, hey, I'm coming over your border. They basically, as if
So
they're
call ahead.
Yeah, as if they're admitting you to the Smithsonian Museum. You pick a time to when you come into the country, and you're supposed to follow up, have your hearing dates all spoken to you through the app. It's not just a failure, but it has opened the door for more individuals to say, well, I'm registered here in this app, as it were, and I should be able to come in. So it's allowed more and more people to come in. Of course, the ending of Title 42 and so many other things from the Biden administration has opened our doors to all sorts of things. The fentanyl crisis has increased, crime has increased, human trafficking is exponential down on our southern border. There's so many grievous wrongs that have come as a result of Secretary Mayorkas that his defiance, one of the words that you said earlier, his defiance is really not what Americans want in their trusted leaders. The doubling down in such bad policy that has led to all sorts of crime in the interior of our country, and the defiance that he shows is something that is not just reprehensible, but there ought to be a congressional response to it. I think there is a lot going on in terms of impeachable activity, but this is certainly one that has to rise to the level of that.
So, Luke Ball, so far in 2023, there have been 140 individuals on the terrorist watch list encountered between ports of entry. Is this a national security issue?
Absolutely. Notice what Mayorkas said there, as they define it. They have control of the border. As their definition goes, they're in control and they have it all together. I don't know what on earth they're using to define it or what measurement, because the Biden administration is complicit in the largest human trafficking and smuggling operation in United States history. Not only are they breaking our economy with the Biden administration, but they are enabling the cartels to profit off of their economy, their illicit economy. They are creating jobs and wealth for the cartels who are sending over drugs, who are sending over humans, and then sending over children to be recycled at the border. And I'll tell you what I mean. When I was down in Yuma, Arizona, we spoke with people who were saying that basically a child is assigned to a family, quote-unquote family unit over in Mexico, and then sent over, and when they present themselves as a family unit to the Border Patrol, they're treated a little bit differently. And then once they're in the United States, that child is taken and then sent back over into Mexico for literal
Pastor
child
Brad,
recycling.
he mentions families, and open borders is a concept that progressives on the left support. There is a feeling, I suspect, amongst them that it is inhumane for this country to say, you are not permitted to come in here. And there are probably, they would say, racial implications to that, too.
Yeah.
What is the appropriate way for a Christian, someone who thinks of himself as a Christian, to view that?
This is not a new problem. As a matter of fact, the book of Isaiah, chapter number 28, details the decline of the 10 northern tribes of Israel 1,000 years before Christ, well, 700 years before Christ. And the two things that Isaiah presents is closed courts and open borders. And that is the subject that we're talking about today. And it all goes back to the family. And there are families that Isaiah is crying against back in his day that need to be brought to justice. And justice is the problem, whether it's the closed court or the redefining, the redefinitions of our nation is the real issue. So the family is the secret, is the key, is the bedrock, is the grassroots of any society that can survive. And the redefinition and the altering of that family will be our demise.
I think I heard those words from Senator Ted Cruz once upon a time, perhaps, and I agreed with them then, agree with them now. Panelists, thank you so much. When we return, a Catholic activist who is waging a campaign against church groups supporting woke policies. We'll be right back.